Hey, this is Andrew bringing you another Keyforge deck review. This one is The Devil That Crawls for the Traitor, which is Dis, Logos, and Mars. This is the last of the three decks that I got from Jupiter of 5th Planet. By the way, I realized earlier on, I didn't realize this when I was setting up the trade. These are, all three of these are Dis, Logos. And out of the third house, right, two of them are Mars. So a lot of, I just didn't realize that. And it's so funny because in all three cases, I was going for Untamed. I was looking for Mars. Well, this one, Dinoch, that one, it was a little more, I just saw it and thought it was awesome. But these two, it was an Untamed setup I was looking for and a Mars setup I was looking for. But the Dis and Logos just does such a good job in every case of setting up space for doing the thing you want to do. And I'll just spoil this out of the gate. This deck is a Genka deck. So it has Martian Gen, Key Abduction. I'll come around to that. But that was what drew my eye to it. The SAS on it is relatively low, and again, I think SAS, doesn't account for everything, and certainly doesn't account for the Genka stuff and things like that. So, I guess in a sense that is pretty janky, but it's quite good. So, let's walk through it. Starting off with the Dis, we have. Oh, by the way, the other thing that really made me go, oh my gosh, this is a deck that I want, is you'll see when it comes to, especially the Dis, it's so similar to my other Martian Gen deck. And this has Logos, not Shadows, so that's going to make it play different, but it's just kind of weird how similar it was. And I thought, wow, I think being able to switch back and forth between this and that one would actually be really convenient for an event like a Triad, which is in Vegas. I'm going to post this after that, but it's a very high chance that I end up using this there. So anyway, two power Aember Imp with Elusive, and after a creature reaps, stun it. We have Not Finished With You, which gives us a bonus Aember. Says shuffle any number of creatures from your discard pile into your deck. Makes sense. We have a Yerk. I'm excited to try this in a Genka deck because this accelerates our ability to get to the thing we need, right? You choose and discard a card from your hand when you play it, so that just helps us filter and get to where we need. Bloodshard Imp, and it is a 4-power demon, by the way. Bloodshard Imp is a 2-power imp, and after a creature reaps, its controller must sacrifice it. Between this and the Amber Imp, we're going to slow our opponent's reap Amber generation for sure. So that can be useful. Chain Reaction, gain an Amber, deal 2 damage to an enemy creature, and if this damage destroys that creature, deal 2 damage to each of that creature's neighbors. Potentially very nice there, a little bit of board control. Okay, Scullion. Big deal here. 7-power demon with 2 armor, and when you play it, you have to sacrifice a friendly creature. If it's the only creature on the board, it has to sacrifice itself. But very likely we end up sacrificing the Bloodshard Imp or the Yerk or something like that. Soulkeeper is an upgrade with a bonus Amber that gives a creature destroy the most powerful enemy creature. Again, some decent board control there. You throw that on the Bloodshard Imp and you make it annoying for your opponent, right? They're going to have to, they can't just reap, they have to deal with this, and when they do deal with it, they're going to end up losing their most powerful creature. Onyx Knight is a 4-power demon knight. After it's played, you destroy each creature with odd power. That's potentially interesting board control, potentially not what we want. So maybe a discard, just depends on the situation, but interesting nonetheless. I don't mind seeing it in there. Ortanu, and this is the thing, this is so crazy, right? Because this is actually a major feature of my other Genka deck. Ortanu is such a great Amber generator in the end, partially because of the way he controls the board as well. So it's a 7-power demon, and after it reaps, you return each copy of Ortanu's Binding from your discard pile to your hand. Well, what is Ortanu's Binding? Well, Ortanu comes with 2 of them. It's a It's an action with a bonus amber, and when you play it, you deal 2 damage to a friendly creature. Well, that's a bad deal, right? Well, kind of, but when Ortanu reaps, you return these from your discard pile to your hand, and then you deal, for each one you return that way, you deal 2 damage to a creature with 2 splash, which means potentially, you know, if your opponent has 3 4-power creatures on the board, you're going to wipe their board. Or, you know, there are other combinations like that that can happen. So interesting stuff. And let's say you start your turn with this guy on the board ready, and these 2 things in your hand, you're going to get 5 amber out of that. Now, probably it's not the way it exactly pans out, but that is a very good deal. If you have the Scullion, then when you do the 2 damage to a friendly creature, some of it is mitigated by that armor. Collector Worm in Mars is also a good way to deal with that. So just interesting stuff that can happen there. The other thing that I think is worth pointing out is my other deck I have another deck that has Scullion Ortanu, and it's a good deck. So I looked at this and I thought, wow, this has a lot of cards together that I'm kind of used to playing together. That seems useful. It also has a card that I don't think I have in any other deck, and we'll have to see how this works out. Pit Lord is a 9-power demon with 2 bonus amber and taunt. Well, that seems like a really good deal. Well, the downside is that while it's in play, you must choose Dees as your active house. So we have to know what we're going to do with this, and if we're going to have a problem. Yeah. Now, he's a good target for the bindings, right? For the Ortanu's binding. He's also you can get rid of him with Onyx Knight. You can get rid of him with Scullion. You can get rid of him by reaping if you have Bloodshard Imp on the table. So lots of good ways to potentially get rid of your own Pit Lord if that's what you need. And so I don't think it's as much of an impediment as it could be in other decks. So yeah, I think it just ends up being kind of straight Amber generation and then do whatever we want. And that is a good deal. Okay, let's look at logos. We have Cutthroat Research, gain an Amber. You know, the hard thing about this card is that in the ideal situation, it does not steal, right? We want our opponent to be low on Amber, so probably it doesn't steal. If they have a lot of Amber, it steals 2, which can potentially be good. Lab Work gives us a bonus Amber and archives a card. That's fantastic. My other Genka deck has Archive, but it does not have variable Archive. It has Sucker Punch, which archives itself, and it has Collector Worm, which archives an opponent's cards. So no way to like plan ahead really with it. Lab Work can put the Martian Generosity in the archives, for example, so potentially really good stuff can happen. Pip Pip is a 2-power human scientist that says after an enemy creature reaps, stun it. So that's more stun hate against the opponent there. We have 3 copies of ZYX Researcher, and that's really interesting. It's a 2-power human scientist. After you play it, you archive the top card of your deck or the top card of your discard pile. That's fantastic. That's a great way to set up for a future turn. And it potentially means you could have a turn where you play Martian Generosity Key Abduction, and then the next turn you play these 2 and just archive both Martian Gen and Key Abduction, which would be bonkers. So really just great stuff you can do with the ZYX Researcher. I'm interested to see how it interacts with the Mars. I haven't actually playtested this one yet, but I'm very excited about that. I think there's a lot of cool possibilities. Brain Eater is a 6-power cyborg beast that says after a creature is destroyed fighting Brain Eater, draw a card. Very nice. Eureka is an action with a bonus Amber, and it also gains you 2 as part of the effect, so really it gains you 3 Amber. It has Alpha, so it has to be the first thing you do on your turn, on your step 3, and so you gain 3 Amber, and then you archive 2 random cards from your hand. So the way I do that is I take my hand, I shuffle it up, I present it to my opponent, and I have them pull out 1 card, 2 cards face down on the table, which I then put in my archives. Of course, I get to look at them, but they don't, but they do. I do let them pick it out of my hand so that it is random to their satisfaction. All right, and I mean, this is fantastic Amber generation. Eureka is. It's the best Amber generation card in Logos, arguably, unless you're going to get into something weird like a Binary Rupture. Interdimensional Graft Gives us an interesting way to turn an opponent's lead into a benefit for us. It gives you a bonus amber and says if your opponent forges a key on their next turn, they must give you their remaining amber. That could potentially set up a very good, I'll lab work my Martian Gen, I'll play interdimensional graft, and then on the next turn, I get to do a Martian Gen and do crazy stuff. So cool things can happen there. Rocket Boots is an upgrade that gives a creature, after fighting or reaping, if it's the first time this creature was used this turn, ready it. Brain Eater may be a good target for that, but really, oh my gosh, putting it on the Ortanu would just be incredible. Putting it on, really, that's the only great target I see for it right now, but I mean, that would be amazing to put it on Ortanu, because you would have, that's at least six Amber Gen, and a lot of damage to the opponent's side of the board, a lot of damage to your side of the board too, but you're in control of where it all goes, so pretty good. I would love to put that on Ortanu. Oh my gosh, I'm very excited about that possibility. And then we have 2 Pocket Universes, and this is a terrible card that I hate and would not like to have, but I do. So that just goes to show you how much crazy stuff happens because of the algorithm. Now, could I be wrong about that? Absolutely. I might end up being wrong about that and decide it's great. Maybe the answer is, hey, this is a good way to actually sock a little amber away, and then when you Martian Gen, you don't necessarily burn through all your amber. Anything that's on here you keep. But I think probably what I'd rather do is draw with it. So I don't know. But I could be wrong about that. I could have to eat my words. But for now, I'm just not that excited about these. That's fine. All right. Collector Worm is a 2-power beast with 5 armor. After it fights, you archive the creature that it fought. And if that creature leaves your archive, to put in its owner's hand instead, of course, like all the Mars archive stuff. This one is good. It's good. And it's really nice if you have it on the board when you do the binding, the Ortanu's binding, because it has a lot of armor that you can chew through with that self-damage. Glixel Proliferator is a 3-power Martian soldier. After it reaps, if it's on a flank, you archive a Mars card from your discard pile. That is quite interesting, potentially with the cool combo cards that we have. We might be able to pull them back out rather quickly that way. Then we have Ixixli Fixfinger, who's a 2-power Martian scientist with 2 armor and elusive, and each other Martian creature, which would include Glitzel Proliferator, as well as your opponent's Martian creatures, gets +1 armor. Mars First gives us a bonus amber and says ready and use a friendly Mars creature. In the worst case scenario, you have 1 creature on the board. That gives you 2 amber. Potentially, use this with like a Glixel Proliferator, and it means you get to actually use the proliferator right away, which could be fantastic, right? To get to archive a Mars card from your discard pile on the turn that you play the proliferator. If only we had a way to draw a lot of cards into our hand at once. Haha. Mars Needs Amber is potentially very interesting here. It gives you a bonus amber, and each damaged enemy non-Mars creature captures 1 from their own side. Potentially very interesting with the Ortanu, because we've been spraying some damage. Potentially interesting with so many small creatures that our opponent might be destroying. Cool stuff could potentially happen there, where we get to keep our opponent off forging. Maybe. Worst case scenario, it's an amber, which isn't bad. We have a Mind Warper, who's a 2-power Martian scientist with elusive. It can exhaust to choose an enemy creature and make it capture 1 amber from its own side. That's a solid move. Mindworm is a 1-power beast with elusive. Before fight, the creature that it's fighting deals damage equal to its power to each of its neighbors, which has very good possibilities attached to it. Sky Booster Squadron is a 4-power Martian soldier. After it reaps, you return it to your hand. You can play it back out, of course. People sometimes forget that. Combat Pheromones is an interesting one here. It gives us a bonus amber, and you can Omni sacrifice it to use up to 2 other Mars cards this turn. That's pretty solid. That potentially means, like, let's say you have a Mars turn where you do Martian Gen, Key Abduction, drop the Proliferator, Mars First it, archive one of the combo cards and also drop pheromones on the board. Next turn you can use the proliferator again on a different house turn to bring back the other combo piece and be ready to go, which would just be really cool. So that's the thing my other Genka deck doesn't have going for it. I actually think it's stronger because of the sting and the shadows in it. But the thing it doesn't have going for it is the ability to like do the archives and pull stuff back around. So this is I'm interested to see how much differently this plays with those kinds of abilities. I'll skip ahead one card just to keep the combo pieces till last. We have a Stormcrawler, which is a 6-power robot with 1 armor. It only deals 1 damage when fighting, but after an enemy creature reaps, you stun it. Again, more stun hate. So we have 4 stun hate cards here to slow our opponent down. That's pretty great. And then lastly, we have the Martian Generosity and the Key Abduction. Of course, the way the combo works is you have hopefully a bunch of amber. You play Martian Generosity, gain an amber, and then you lose all of your amber and you draw 2 amber for each card lost. So in an ideal situation, maybe you start the turn with 5 amber or something like that, and you're able to like get up to 7, play this, that puts you at 8. You lose it, you draw 16 cards, and at that point you have enough to play a Key Abduction and forge for free, and then you get to play a bunch of other cards out of your hand, and then have really good hands for your next 2 turns as well. Again, the interesting thing to me here is that typically in this situation, in my other deck, at that point I just have to play out my hands and then hope I win, which usually happens, or cycle around into the combo again. But here, with like the proliferator, it's just so easy. The proliferator and the researchers, I think there's so many ways to get back around to the combo very quickly that I'm pretty excited to try this out and see if it's even better than my current Genka deck. Then wow! I'm very excited to play that at the Vault Tour. If it's even close, then it would be very good. That's that. I do have some thoughts, and we'll see how it goes. I'm leaning in the direction of going to the Vault Tour with 3 rush decks, essentially. My initial thought was just take my 3 strongest decks, and I think that's not a bad strategy, but the problem I have is in my 3 strongest decks, I have a rush Genka deck that does amber control and then just combos to really get a lock and probably win. Then my next strongest one does a lot of amber and board control and kind of slows the game down, does a Control the Weak Screaming Cave combo to just grind out the opponent and then win, with a lot of amber burn, really almost no steal. And then my third strongest deck uses Grunt Buggy to try to control the board and hopefully and control the amber cost as a lot of really big creatures. And so the idea is to just get board control, get the Grunt Buggy out, and then just race and win. That's all fine. The one, I guess, concern I have is in that situation, if the opponent has a deck that they think can beat 2 of them, they just have to give the bench to the one deck they're really worried about, that they think none of my decks can win against that. And if I go with 3 decks that all want to rush, then maybe an opponent has 3 decks that can all beat rush consistently, and then I'm toast. But I think it's likelier they have some variety, and I can look and say, okay, which is the worst situation for rush? Bench that, make them play with the other 2, and then all 3 of my decks have a shot at winning against at least one of their decks. So I think that's the way I'm going to go, is actually to shoot for less diversity in the triad. The other thing the other benefit that would give me is that I wouldn't have to do as much mental switching in between playing decks, and that's always a concern for me in this type of format is switching between decks. You really have to switch how you're thinking, potentially. Well, you should. And if they're all pretty similar, then that has a lesser effect, which means I'm less likely to make terrible misplays. So that's kind of my thought process. Like I said, I'm not going to post this until after the vault tour, so you'll see how that went for me and what kind of results I got. But that is my current thinking, is that I'm probably better off with 3 strong decks that all kind of want to do similar things. And really what I'm leaning towards is 3 decks that all have Dees. 2 of them have Mars. 2 of them have Logos, and 1 of them has Shadows, and 1 has did I do the math? 3 Dees, 2 Logos, 2 Mars, and a Shadows. Oh, and an Untamed. Derp. Okay, so yeah, we'll see how that goes. I guess I'll have to post an update afterward. But that's that. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed walking through that deck as much as I did. I'm excited to get some playtesting in with it, see again how it's different. And until next time, happy forging.